So shame and narcissism are deeply connected. When you look at someone who is expressing narcissistic characteristics, if you take a deeper look, you'll likely discover that their characteristics, they're there due to this deep feeling of shame around something. And although you may not be able to completely become aware of what that is in most cases, because it's not super obvious, here are some ways that narcissistic behavior is showing up. The need for attention or validation, and usually this is a constant need for attention and validation. The reason why is because they feel inadequate. They feel like they're not enough. And so the need for constant attention and constant validation and the constant look at me, look how great my life is, oh my God, praise me, is because they don't actually feel that within themselves. So they're looking for the external validation. Narcissistic behavior associated to shame can also show up as perfectionism, the obsessive need for control, gaslighting, blaming, or deflecting, which is not taking responsibility for their words and actions. This can be something like if you approach a narcissistic person and you're like, hey, I didn't like when you did this. This is the way that it made me feel. And they're like, you're just making that up, or you're overreacting, or I didn't say that. You're just making a bigger deal out of this than what it really is. That essentially is gaslighting, deflecting, and this can actually make you feel kind of crazy or not want to communicate with this person, not want to be around them anymore. So another way that shame associated with narcissism can be showing up is a lack of boundaries. This means that they need to know every single detail of every event, your personal life, different situations. This helps them feel like they're in more control. Usually they lack empathy. They have avoidance characteristics, especially when they feel like they're being questioned. They just shut the conversation down. They say it's not up for discussion anymore. And they might even completely shut you out of their life, blocking you from that aspect of even having that conversation with them. This can also show up as entitlement or superiority, as a way of being highly defensive, emotional reasoning, extreme fear of rejection and ridicule showing up as unhealthy coping mechanisms when they are experiencing this. This means that they could be turning to drugs or alcohol or sex or any other vice, shopping, excessive eating, whatever it might be. This also can be anxiety, the inability to truly be vulnerable, right? It could be inauthentic vulnerability where they like overshare all the time, but they're oversharing from a place of needing to be validated and needing attention. But it's not truly being authentic because their authenticity is associated with the need for validation and attention. And then lastly, difficulty being a team player. Everything obviously is always about them. If you disagree with them, they will gaslight you or dismiss you or completely cut you out of their life or out of the project or whatever else it might be. They don't take feedback very well usually. They lack empathy, so they don't usually understand how you're feeling. They might think they care, but they don't actually take the time to go deeper into caring. There's a lot of ways that shame and narcissism are coupled together, a lot of ways that they show up. And although it's very uncomfortable to be on the receiving end of this type of behavior or on the receiving end in this type of relationship, please don't be fooled. About 90% of narcissist behavior, and this is a psychological disorder, narcissistic personality disorder is a disorder. But about 90% of the time, this disorder is also deeply associated with shame. And it's usually deeply rooted in childhood, where it's an unhealed wound that is so deeply rooted that usually that person is so blind to it. They have no idea why this is continuing to come up. It's usually because they also were raised by somebody who also had deep-rooted shame and who also showed those narcissistic characteristics. So it is a delicate situation when you're dealing with a narcissist because, of course, it's hard not to take it personally. It hurts. Of course it hurts because it feels like your feelings and your wants, needs, and desires are completely invalid to that person. And usually narcissists are very good at playing into your wants, needs, and desires to the point where once they've got you reeled in, now they flip it on you and it's about them. They give when it's convenient, and then they kind of like pull the rug out from underneath you, and then make you feel bad for it, which is, again, gaslighting. So it is really hard not to take things personally here, but if you desire to have better relationships with this person that you're experiencing the narcissistic relationship with, it's very important to slow down and understand that shaming them for the way that they're showing up is not going to do anything positive, because when you add more shame on top of somebody who's already feeling a great deal of shame, this is actually probably going to fuel their narcissistic behavior and make it even worse. So this is going to take a lot of practice, a lot of patience, and a lot of grounding on your end to fully realize how to better communicate with this type of person. But true healing can happen here. And I've seen it happen for myself in my client relationships personally. And it's very powerful when it does. It does take some time. It does take a lot of practice and grounding and patience. But at the end of the day, powerful transformations can happen.